we welcome you all to the first session of our webinar series on a career in ADR and Insider. I'm really excited to inform you that we have been joined by students across the country as well as from fields other than law. Before we begin with today's session, we would like to take a moment to introduce the organizations that have brought this event to life. The Center for Mediation and Conciliation provides a uh, much needed neutral institutional platform for resolution of commercial disputes, and it wishes to provide an efficient, sustainable, as well as solution-oriented dispute resolution process. It has been affiliated with the High Court of Bombay, as well as the City and Sessions Court Mumbai as a mediation center, and successfully administers court-referred mediations. It is uh, it is also recognized by the Ministry of Law and Justice, as well as the Ministry of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises of the Government of India. The Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution, RGNL, the co-organizer of the event, is a research center established to promote students as well as researchers' interest in the field of ADR. Started in 2018, the center strives to organize stimulating discourses that are not only relevant to the academia but also to the professional world. In pursuance of its objectives, the center has organized various novel and innovational events, lectures, and competitions in collaboration with valued partners from across the professional world as well as the academia. Now, while attending today's session, you might have asked, or even while filling out the registration forms, you might have asked yourself, why do I need this? Well, to address that depth of curiosity, let us be upfront. This series is aimed at discussing the prospects of of various areas in the field of ADR. We shall achieve this by the way of 7 Q&A sessions with 7 distinguished luminaries from the legal fraternity to provide you, the listeners, with valuable insights into a career in ADR. Our hope here is to bridge the gap between the how and the when. Our hope is to attract as many eyeballs as we possibly can to the field of ADR. Now, with that, I invite my co-moderator, Chaitanya, to introduce you to today's session, as well as our distinguished speaker, Mr. Garg Malhotra.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Chaitanya, we can't hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Chaitanya, you are.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, good evening, everybody, and good evening, sir, for your thank you. Good evening, sir, for your valuable time. So, primarily today's session is aimed at answering a very crucial question that lays the foundation of a successful career in alternate dispute resolution. The importance of a master's degree in the field of ADR. Or you could also say that the lack of importance of the master's degree in the field of an ADR. This is what we shall be answering in today's session. So to lay out a brief description of how we shall navigate through this tough terrain, we would be discussing the experience in law school, how to go about internships, the art of choosing universities, and the importance of professional experience before applying, and much, much more. So to answer all of these questions before us, we are graced by the presence of Advocate Garv Malhotra. So Advocate Malhotra is a partner at Skywards Law, New Delhi. He graduated from Gujarat NLU with a GLAS scholarship in 2015. He then served as an advocate and associate counsel at ADP Chambers before pursuing a master's degree in international dispute settlement at the prestigious Geneva Center for International Dispute Settlement on a full scholarship. He later on pursued a Master's of Law in International Arbitration at the National University of Singapore on the CIL scholarship. He then served at Drew and Napier LLC, Singapore, and Collier Law LLC, Singapore, before coming back to India. Advocate Malhotra now practices commercial laws and leads the international disputes, arbitration, and litigation practices at Skyward Law. He has trained under practice leaders in multiple jurisdictions and has acted for individuals, companies, and state-owned entities in matters involving Indian, Singapore, and English laws. Apart from practice, he has lectured and taken sessions for students at various universities in Asia, including NLSIU, GNLU, NUS, and NALSA. We welcome you, sir, for this session today, and we are extremely grateful. So if you're comfortable, we can start asking the questions.
Thank you, Chaitanya. It's good to be here. Good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be talking to all of you. Sure, please fire away with your questions.
Sure, sir. So the first question that comes to my mind is, so when we talk about the study of law, we're usually acquainted with the idea of making flashy statements in a trial and having emotionally tense cross-examinations. But however, upon entering law school, you are familiarized with other fields of law, which lead you to choose a particular field of career. So my question to you then is that how should one make a decision to follow a certain path in law? And moreover, what led you to choose this particular part, this particular field of law?
Thanks for the question. Choosing a path in law is obviously a difficult decision for most of us. But this takes me back to a statement that many years ago, when I was an intern, Mr. Ram Jethmalani had said to me, and I had gone up to him and said, "Sir, I have decided I want to be a criminal lawyer." And he said, "Your fate will choose the kind of lawyer you become." And there is a lot of truth in that. In some ways, your fate and the opportunities that present themselves to you on your journey will choose the kind of lawyer you become. Having said this, it doesn't mean that you don't make your own efforts. In fact, it means the opposite. It means that you try everything that you can get your hands on, especially in your law school journey. Try experimenting with whatever you come across, and then try assessing for yourself what piques your interest, what do you enjoy the most, what are you good at, and one way or the other, you should find a way so that you expose yourself to the maximum number of things. And then somewhere along the line, due to a variety of factors, paths will start appearing.
So, sir, can we say that while interning under the late advocate Ram Jethmalani, you were given the clarity to have a choice of careers, and before that, you were very hell-bent on pursuing criminal litigation?
I wish I could say that, but that isn't so true. When I was interning with Mr. Jethmalani was my last internship of the 5th year. I had by then done 13 internships, and in those times, internships always meant physical internships. And I was still very confused, and it's very normal to be. I told him, I think I want to become a criminal lawyer, but on his suggestion and that of a few other senior mentors at the bar, I joined an office which gave me exposure to the practice of both civil and arbitration laws as well as criminal litigation. And then you sort of gravitate towards one field over another just by way of your own interest as well as your own what you're good at.
This does provide a certain level of clarity, sir. So talking about having online experiences and gaining more knowledge online. So in this day and age where online platforms are gaining traction like the heated Pirelli tires on a Formula One car, what are some of the online courses which you would suggest one should undertake when learning more about ADR?
That's a very hard question. Honestly, for our own teams internally, we have tried looking for just the right courses to do. But so far, we haven't found the perfect ones. And this is unfortunate that some of the places to get good international arbitration and arbitration education, the closest ones are in Singapore and Switzerland and all. And so we hope to create one ourselves when we end up finding some time. But as of now, while there are a lot of good courses available, I don't know personally of any one which I'm very happy to recommend that, yeah, this is that course you should do and it'll solve your problems. It doesn't work that way.
So, sir, the next question is pulled out from my own box of muddled thoughts and disoriented beliefs that in law school, we are faced with two particular species of students. So, species A is very adamant on the fact that university is not school and grades aren't that important, while the other species has a very clear cut formula that good grades equal to good internships and then a good professional life later on. So, well, I could not find a better person to answer this, that being a gold medal holder and having multiple scholarships, what is your take on the great dilemma? Are they important? Are they not? And do they help in getting internships, and till what extent?
Um, Personally, I do not value grades as much as people would like to believe. Uh, Despite academic credentials in all my years of practice, not a single client has ever come and asked me what my GPA was or what medal, what scholarship. It doesn't really matter. In the end, being an effective and efficient lawyer is not really, your grades aren't the hallmark of that. That's the truth. Having said this, at the same time, grades do serve as a filtration mechanism for a lot of places. And so it would be very wrong to say that they do not make a difference. They do make a difference. They get you a foot in the door in a lot of places where they end up being an eligibility criteria, so to say. But apart from that, do are grades a hallmark of how excellent a lawyer you will become? Certainly not. In fact, very often you'll see people who weren't really focusing on their grades in law school. They were just those people who just didn't want to study those 5 6 hours extra before every exam. If they did that, they would probably get extra grades. The clients know that, the hiring lawyers know that. This is the reality. Especially given how grades are marked in India and various other Asian academic systems. I do not personally think that they are the most important criteria, or just as important as I see students and our younger colleagues make them out to be.
So, and a question out of my own curiosity here. What was your study methodology like? Were you a spaced repetition person, or would you make handwritten notes? What did you do which separated you from the crowd?
I was really bad. You're taking out things that I'm not sure I should be saying, but I was always a last minute study person. I never really prepared much in advance. 2 days before the exam, I would run frantically around trying to source notes from some friend who would have made them. I always had a habit of studying from multiple places. So I would have everything that would be available and just read from the top a variety of things. I would read notes once, I would read a glance through the book once, and I would just make my own keywords in my own head of what to write the next day. Having said that, I did end up going into rabbit holes. There were certain topics that piqued my interest in everything that I would study. And I would very often ignore the rest and just go study deeper into one particular topic. So I may not always be the best guide, and I wasn't always very grades focused myself. So I personally think you should be studying from as many sources as you can come across. It's not that you should be taking notes or any particular book or what your professor says is gospel truth, because law practice doesn't work that way.
Your LinkedIn page is quite a web page to envy of all legal fraternity. Now, it is quite rightly filled with experienced individuals and practitioners such as Sir Ram Jethmalani, Sori Saurabh ji. So, I wanted to ask you that how do you suggest that one should go about internships? Like, where should they apply? How often should they intern?
So these wonderful lawyers who unfortunately are no more, our former law minister, Mr. Jethmalani, our former attorney general, Mr. Surabji, and a few other stellar lawyers that I've had the chance of interning with over the years. I always wanted to go work with them because I admired them so much. Internships are supposed to show you dreams and give you exposure more than anything else. To be honest, when you get into practice, you realize that no matter how many internships you do, I see students doing like 20, 25 internships these days, virtually multiple internships at the same time. No matter how many internships you do, you start from scratch when you graduate. And so you should utilize these internships to give you exposure, to give you the chance to see how high one can reach in the profession of law, to give you perspective into people who are trying different things and doing different practice areas. Internships are also very importantly meant to show you what is not meant for you. You go to a place and you realize, no, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I know when I was in my third year, I went and interned in a big top law firm, and in the corporate team, just to see whether I like that kind of work. I realized that no, that wasn't something that I wanted to do so early on in my profession. And so a lot of these things also give you an idea of what you don't want to do, because when you graduate and once you pick a side, very often you're going to be doing that in and out for months and years at a stretch from morning to night, and that's all you'll be thinking about. So getting into an area that really works for you is very important here.
Sir, what is your take on virtual internships? New phenomena since the COVID days. What is your take on this new phenomena?
It's fantastic. I really appreciate the fact that for the first time in human history, we can be so far apart. We can be in different cities, different countries, and still work together collectively in producing results. Our firm, we have a completely virtual internship program, and we've had some stellar interns who, despite never having met me and the other team in person even till now, worked with us, produced some excellent work, and we still remember them very fondly. I know some of them are even attending here, so shout out to all of them.
Sir, what is an ideal CV according to you? What should be an ideal intern CV that can get easily shortlisted with numerous different practitioners?
There's nothing called an ideal CV, honestly. There is no like you have these four things, it'll work. It doesn't again work from that. You have to appreciate that this is a very human profession. What we look for when we select interns is, one, we always look for a demonstrated commitment towards a particular thing. For instance, our team is the international arbitration and disputes and litigation practice. And so in that team, we end up onboarding students who have just demonstrated a commitment towards learning and gaining more exposure towards the field of arbitration, domestic or international. And so this is one thing that people really look for. Second thing that disqualifies a lot of interns is presentation skills. If advocacy is the art of persuasion, when you're writing to a prospective mentor for an internship, essentially what you want is you want to persuade them to bring you on board, give you access to their confidential work, their files, show you parts of their practice which nobody else gets to see very closely, and things which are very often very closely guarded secrets. For that, you have to persuade somebody that, yeah, I will add value to your work. And in that, presentation is very important, because when somebody writes me an email which is 2-3 pages long, there is no way I'm reading it. An ideal email for an application should be just 2 to 3 lines, or maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs at most, and saying that there's a cover letter attached, there's a CV attached. We really want to get this opportunity, but we don't want to bother you with long emails. So please, when you get a time, just have a look at these, and we would hope to get a chance to come and work with you. Second thing, even follow-ups matter. People, when they show a demonstrated commitment towards working with you, then you are more inclined to give them an opportunity to come on board.
So, sir, after completing your bachelor's from GNLU, you briefly worked at ADP Chambers. So we wanted to know that why did you opt for work when you could have easily gotten admission into any master's programs such as NUS or CIDS?
I think it's very important to work after you graduate and before you go for a master's program. When you go to law school, you learn bits of theory of the law practice, but practicing after law school teaches you a very important lesson, that is that law school taught you nothing. And then you have to learn to start from the start and connect academics to practice. Practice is very different. It's very result oriented. We look at the relief we want, and then we back calculate from our prayer to see how we go about it. And that training, that understanding of the gap between academics and practice can only be filled once you graduate and you practice for a while. I suggest to everybody that they practice for a little while before they even consider going for a master's. Also, because when you go internationally, you will be taken much more seriously if you are somebody who was a practicing lawyer who's taken an advanced academic break, rather than if you are somebody who was a student and now is doing further studies.
So, is there really something known as breaking the chain of formal education? We every now and then encounter individuals who are unwilling to go for further studies after starting practicing.
There is truth in that. Once you stop studying, inertia sets in, and you get used to various other things. You get used to practicing in a very different format. You are by the end of your law school, you're like, I'm done with exams for life. You tear away your papers and be like, no more of this. But once you consider higher studies, it gets difficult if you have been practicing for a while, even if it's just a few months or a few years. But I still suggest that people should consider doing it, because the way I look at it, it's a springboard. You take a dip, you go down a bit, but then you jump much higher. And that's what you do a master's for.
So, what merits or demerits can you derive from working before going for masters? And is the decision really all that important when applying for masters?
I don't think there are demerits. I think there are only merits and no demerits of practicing a little before you go for your master's. It could be as little as just a year, or it could be a few years. It could even be up to 7, 10, 15 years. There's no problem if you've studied for many years. It's more internal. You need to understand your why of masters. If you understand your why, you will find your how some way or the other. And so I really think there is no demerit. In fact, it should be absolutely essential. And you will see some of the best programs in the world, especially in the field of arbitration, will very rarely take candidates who have no practical experience and just have academic experience, because while they may have done stellar work as students, they are still lacking the depth of perspective when it comes to experience for practical programs like international LLMs in the field of arbitration.
Now that we have developed an understanding of what led you to the gates of higher education, we now wish to shift the focus towards the process. So, Mr. Malhotra, when talking about the field of dispute resolution, we are usually told that experience in the field is very important. Now, I wanted to know how, your take on this question, that how true is the belief that experience is crucial in dispute resolution?
I think experience is probably 9 out of 10 of a good dispute resolution practitioner. And you understand this only once you get some experience. You understand this also because after a point of time, disputes, especially I'm a commercial business disputes lawyer, so I can speak more only on that. But after a point of time, disputes will start looking similar. You would have done one of virtually everything in a few years. And beyond that, your experience is what gives you confidence, gives your client confidence, as well as gives you perspective of not just a single track, but multiple tracks on what uh, various eventualities could occur in every situation. And so there is no substitute for experience. There is a reason why it's called a practice.
Sir, you spoke about figure out why this. Now, we wanted to know why did you halt full-time practice to pursue masters, and which were the and you are, by the way, excelling at your practice. Then why did you choose to pursue masters in the middle of it?
So I had the chance of working under two very stellar lawyers when I graduated from law school, Mr. Debesh Panda and Mrs. Amrita Panda. Mr. Debesh Panda is a graduate of the MITS Geneva program. Mrs. Amrita Panda is a graduate of Queen Mary Arbitration Program in London. And both of them are exceptional lawyers who, working with them, I got the chance to firsthand see what international exposure and academic experience does to a lawyer, from not just their approach towards legal problems, but their general polish and how well-rounded personalities they develop. And so they were very instrumental in inspiring me to apply for international programs. And it's fine. You can do all of these programs and still come back in India, and you don't have to start from scratch. You start from experience.
Another intriguing part of your resume, you have done masters from two different universities, and both are quite similar in the field of law. Why did you decide to pursue two of them?
So I get this question a lot, and I had anticipated this question even when I decided to go for my second master's. My first master's was very planned. Second master has happened also by way of opportunities that presented themselves on the way. But every master's program, be it your first or your second, there's always an opportunity cost. You're doing that instead of doing something else with your time. And so you have to do a cost benefit analysis. For some people, it works. For some people, it doesn't. It's a very personal choice. For me, I got to do my first master's in Geneva, which, as many of you know, is in Switzerland, which is a very developed country and offers a very developed world perspective. When NUS opportunity presented itself, it was the chance to come experience a developing world perspective, especially in the field of international arbitration, where these two perspectives are very polarized and very opposite. And so NUS gave me the chance of coming to Singapore, which was a hub of international arbitration in the region and a melting pot of cultures. It also gave me the chance of studying under legendary professors like Muthu Kumaraswamy Swarna Raja, who's known for the developing world perspective, and studying other subjects like comparative international oil and gas law, which helps me a lot in my practice, and so on and so forth. So while these two programs, they sound deceptively similar in terms of the names of the degrees, they offered a very different window into the field that I am so fond of.
So you had numerous options for universities. What made you go for CID and NUS Singapore? And more importantly, if you had not gone for these universities, then what other options you might have gone for?
I don't know. These are counterfactuals that I really cannot speculate on. But I know I only applied to MIDS in the year that I got in, and because I really wanted to do the program, it is still, I believe, uh, the finest program out there, because not just they teach you well and the people who teach there, but it's a very rigorous program. It's actually a very intense program and a very multicultural experience. But had I not gotten into mids in my in the first attempt, the next year I would have applied to the top 10 and probably gone wherever I would land a scholarship or some funding support, because I did not have the resources to do it myself.
Asking on the same tangent, what is your selection criteria while deciding on the university?
Again, this depends on which university, which program. Selection criterias are very dependent on the particular program that you're applying to. But generally, what universities look for is obviously a commitment, to the specific area that you are applying to. If you are thinking of a master's in competition law, but your experience is throughout in a completely different field, it doesn't match well together. But universities look for people who have shown a commitment towards pursuing a particular field. Second thing they also look for is a freshness of perspective. So they don't want multiple people who are exceptional but with a similar background. Everybody who's been a counselor, everybody who's been a judge's clerk, or something or the other. But like, they look for people who bring in very different experiences and different skill sets. And so when you, as a prospective candidate, are planning your journey for a master's, it's also a place where you have to use your advocacy skills and come up with ways to persuade them that this is how I'm different, and this is the different perspective that I will bring to the classroom discussions and truly add value to the whole program and the whole cohort as such.
Chaitanya, you are not audible again.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. So now that we have had the opportunity to develop our understanding of how to ace internships and maybe categorize our priorities to maybe decide on whether to pursue a higher education or not, shall we talk more about how the university selects us rather than us selecting the university? Because let's be honest, they are not out of options to select great candidates to be a representative of their cultures. So when applying for your higher education, a lot of students might not be financially gifted to go for a master's in Cambridge or Oxford. So when and how do scholarships come into the picture for applications, and what makes you eligible for a scholarship?
So scholarships, I believe, represent the best of what exists in humanity. It's actually a grant, a gift from somebody who wants to fulfill an access to education gap, to enable students and people who would otherwise have a lot of trouble financing access to these programs. And scholarships enable students to do these programs without killing themselves or their families, metaphorically, in with the burdens of the enormous financial commitments that are required. And this is also because, you see, there's not a single good arbitration LLM program that you can do in India, at least not one that I am aware of. And all of these are in much more further advanced countries, where just going and doing these programs is of enormous financial burden for people who come from developing countries, not just India, but all developing countries. And so when you think of applying for scholarships, you need to think of the vision behind the particular scholarship. So look at the program, look at the scholarship that is being offered, and understand the vision behind the people who instituted that scholarship. And then try to align your application with the vision of the scholarship to demonstrate that, yes, I am the kind of person for whom this scholarship was created. I'm one of those people who you didn't know about, but I'm one of those people who you would have thought of when you created these scholarships. And so whenever you write your scholarship applications, wherever you write them, you have to remember that it's not just demonstrating the fact that you are very good at what you do, or demonstrating that you do not have the resources to do it, but just demonstrating that you are the right candidate for the generosity of somebody who has gone ahead and instituted such a wonderful thing, donated large sums of money so that somebody that they don't even know about can get access to higher education.
So when applying for a master's abroad, and this comes from my experience as well, because I was looking through the applications and the requirements of what you are required to send in to get considered, there is a lot of weight that is put on a statement of purpose. So what are the key differentiating factors in making it or breaking it when you're writing down an SOP? And what makes person A's SOP stand out in the eyes of a university than person B?
I wouldn't know. I'm not a university and I've never been on the graduate admissions committee anywhere. But um, given my experience as a candidate at multiple places making these applications, I can tell you that just freshness of perspective, just things that initiative makes all the difference. They don't like seeing people who have done the same thing over and over. You have to appreciate that the best programs receive thousands of applications every year from people who are all very, very good candidates. And so what they look for is a vision, and they look for people who have understood how their program would fit in perfectly in their own journey. So these things are some things that admissions committees very often look at, that how will our program fit well in this person's journey, and if we give this person an opportunity to come to our program, what will it do to his or her career in the long run.
So lastly, on this very topic, when talking about scholarships and SOPs, what are the best scholarships which one should apply for when going for a program in ADR?
Well, unfortunately, there aren't general ADR scholarships in the world that I'm aware of. Most scholarships are very institution and program specific. So the way to go about it, in my experience, which is again about a few years old now, because I had done all of this many years ago, and world has changed many times over in the last few years. But with all those caveats aside, the scholarships are those which are linked to particular programs. And so you should first choose your program, and then accordingly look for the scholarships that are available for that particular program, and then go about applying for them.
So also a follow-up question, maybe backtracking a bit on the topic of interning, this topic came up in my mind. If you had to grade particular internships, say you had to intern in the field of alternate dispute resolution, primarily arbitration or mediation, would you suggest a current student of law, maybe a graduate, to go for a particular form of internship? say a judicial clerkship or a firm, maybe a chamber, maybe work with centers like CMC Mumbai, how would you go about maybe suggesting which position would have its merits or demerits there?
So on a fairly frequent basis, I get the chance to interact with a lot of our interns. We speak virtually on a daily basis with people who come intern with us, and we have groups of people even who used to be interns, and very often they come to my office and they come give me a call. We speak about their own internship careers, and so the advice I give to them generally is that try getting your hands on as much different things possible. There is no straight jacket path for anybody. And even if you want to reach where somebody else would have reached already, just because they have taken a particular path doesn't mean that you need to take the same path, or even that the same path will in fact work for you. Everybody has their own journey, everybody has their own path. You can seek inspiration, and like you can take leaves out of the books of a few people who have done different programs, but beyond that you have to trust your own journey.
I mean, that is something that we should all think about further on. But moving on to the further questions. So having studied both in India and in universities abroad, as you've just stated that in countries which are far more developed than our own, how would you describe your learning environment when you compare Indian education system towards the education system followed in Geneva and NUS? So how were the teaching like? What was the examination like? Were you still following the 48-hour before the examination study pattern? How things changed for you there?
So teaching in India and teaching methods overseas are very different. And it's hard to generalize when I say teaching methods overseas, because the world at large, everywhere it's different. It's not that India is following one pattern and the whole world at large is following something else. Different places have their own education systems, which are a consequence of a variety of social and cultural and historical factors also. So, for instance, education in Geneva was very different, and I personally enjoyed studying there so much that from an perpetual attendance defaulter, I became a 100% attendance student. I would study all the time, and I wouldn't even feel like I was studying. I would just thoroughly enjoy it so much that you would constantly uh, keep on reading and trying to understand what is going on. Also, because for me, MIDS was a very advanced program. When I reached there, I was one of the youngest in my class, which ranged from like about 23 years of age to about 48 years of age. And so for me, I've just spent a lot of time studying in Geneva. Luckily, a lot of it was just studying on my iPad, sitting next to the lake and studying arbitration along with a cohort of exceptional students from all over the world. And so it gives you a very different experience altogether from what you are used to back in India. NUS was also very different, but it was more closer on the spectrum to Indian education, in the sense that you were expected to consume large parts of information, memorize them, and then write your answers accordingly. Whereas the European and the Swiss system, especially, was very focused on application and much less on your power of memorization. A very simple example would be the practice of always having open book exams in Switzerland to never having open or rarely having open book exams in Singapore.
So maybe a sidetrack question which I have come up with listening to you. So would you say that not a secret, but a way to your success is you being relaxed?
I
Because I've
wouldn't.
seen I mean, I asked this question because I've seen a lot of students, my peers and seniors and juniors alike. We all stress a lot that we need a certain level of GPA, we need so and so internships, we need itne mood chahiye, we need ADR competitions, we need papers. But listening to you, and when a gold medalist speaks of studying 2 days before an exam and just reading notes, reading from a lot of sources, so that is why I asked that, is the secret to your success being relaxed?
Thank you for that flattering question. I really can't call it secret to success. I myself am a student of the law and hopefully will stay a student of the law throughout my life. I go back to what the very wonderful late Mr. Jethmalani again used to say, that um, it's very natural to feel scared at situations in the law. This will never go away. You feel this right now as a law student. I feel like this as a partner of a law firm. You would be scared about X things. I would be scared about Y things. And a senior counsel, a top exceptional bedroom poster lawyer for most of us younger lawyers and law students, would perhaps feel afraid about something else. The trick is, one, not letting it show, because that makes a difference, not just to people outside, but internally. You need to learn to internalize these things. Two, you need to have faith in the power of passion and in the power of dreaming big, in the power of really believing in yourself, even when others can't see it. There will be many times in your life, in your career, where you have to trust your own instincts and trust your own guts to do things. And happiness in the profession of law, as all my colleagues who've worked with us at Skywards would already be knowing what I would say, that happiness in the profession of law doesn't come from looking left and right. This is a wonderful gem my senior Mr. Panda had taught me in my early years of practice, and I try to share this with all our colleagues who work with us, that if you want to be happy in the profession of law, which is very different from being successful in the profession of law, you need to stop looking left and right, and you need to stop comparing that, oh, this person has so many internships and this person has so many moods. Today it's internships, later it'll be something else, and this will never stop. So the best way is to start internalizing your competition, compare against yourself yesterday, and dream of where you would aspire to be tomorrow, day after, and 10 years from now.
So a few questions that have been put up in the Q&A section by our participants would be that the first question is that, can you please shed some more light on the application process for MITS Geneva?
I don't think I can. I applied to MIDS about 7 years ago. I'm pretty sure the process has changed. The process always used to be simple. I know I have a few colleagues from our own teams who have applied and over the years for this program, and I know it's a simple application process online. They ask you for a bunch of documents, they ask you for your statements and your letters, but it's a fairly streamlined process.
So so as an academically average student, how can that student who is about to graduate shape his or her CV to hope for landing a master's degree at a place such as MIDS or NUS for that matter?
So there are a number of ways where you can shift the focus away from your grades to a number of other things. Practical experience is one. But the one thing that makes a lot of difference is initiative. Initiative in doing something different. Doing the same thing that everybody is doing. If you do the same thing, the people who are judging you have very few filters, very few criteria to judge you on. And then marks become very important. If there are 5 people who've done the same thing, who have similar backgrounds, then you have to judge them on the basis of the objective metrics of GPA, marks, and various other things. But people who have done different things, who have attempted, who've tried, and even if they have failed at creating something, but they have given a genuine attempt at doing something different, which progressively takes the field forward, or just taking initiatives like the one we are right now a part of. All of these things make a lot of difference to people who are considering you as a potential candidate for a class.
So,
General universities.
no,
Good-
please,
good.
Harsha, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So the general university is also offering an LLM with specialization in ADR.
Oh yeah,
How do you
I
think?
didn't know this.
Sure, sir. I let it pass.
No, please go ahead. I just didn't know about this program, but I'm happy to answer the question.
To know that how do uh, these courses stand in comparison with the course abroad? I
I
mean,
don't
it may
know.
affect your job prospects and other things.
I don't know. So we have had the chance to see Jindal University get created and then over the years develop. And they have done some things very well, including getting phenomenal faculty who have gained experience worldwide to come and teach. And so if they have started a program like this, I would suggest you to look up who's teaching in those programs. But I'm sure that they would have gotten very good people to teach. And I hope a lot of other universities take a leaf out of their book and start these programs, because there is a lot of need for such programs. How good is their program? I'm really not in a position to say. I don't know much about the program. I've not had the chance to ever teach at Jindal, although like I never really went and taught a program there, maybe sometime in the future. But other universities that I've had the chance of working with very closely, from NLS Bangalore, GNLU, Nalsar, all of these, they have good faculty, they have good students interested in the subject, but they do not have specific advanced programs focused on international arbitration, international disputes as such.
I don't know if you would have been aware of this, because this is, I believe, quite recent, but there has been a development in the field of making ADR more mainstream by the likes of the introduction of Daksha Fellowship. And I believe Nalsar also has a diploma in teaching ADR, just ADR, for a period of, I believe, a year. So I guess that you aren't particularly in a place to suggest or maybe build a comparison on how these courses are faring out with your experience there. But for the members who are listening to this session, you could also look into various programs like the Daksha Fellowship and diplomas by Nalsar and NLU Delhi that might give you a perspective on the development of arbitration in India. So picking on that topic itself, uh, you had experience outside of India in arbitration where the countries are developed, the subject of arbitration itself is fairly developed. Then what led you to choose this decision of coming back to India, where the country itself is slightly on its developmental path, but moreover, the field of arbitration is still evolving? Why come back to an evolving state?
See, everybody's decisions are very personal in this aspect. I am a very romantic patriot, so to say. I come from generations of public service, and for me, my stint overseas was always a stint. I never planned to settle abroad. I got the scholarship to go to MITS, so I decided to take a 10-month break and go to Geneva. One thing led to another. It led me to Paris and then Hague, and then I landed in Singapore, did another LLM there. And again, I come from a very modest background in this aspect. So I was fortunate to land scholarships, but had I had to pay for these, I could not have managed to pay for any of these programs. And a lot of them were anonymous scholarships. So I see that as a debt to the universe at large. And I know that India is where some of the developed arbitration jurisdictions like Geneva, Paris, Singapore were 10, 20 years ago. These guys are about 10, 20, even 30 years ahead of us. But their journeys have a lot of lessons. And we can use those lessons and try being a part of building something in a rising wave. India has a brilliant future ahead, and there is no dearth of uh, exceptional quality work, exceptional quality lawyering, as well as a lot of scope for a lot of arbitration landscape building things that need to be done here, that can be done here with the help of so many people we have here. And just if we are able to get it right, the future in India is very bright of this field, I personally believe. And that's why, despite working at an international law firm, I always considered that as a stint of learning, of building relations before I came back to India, and practiced here and tried to be a part of something bigger, try to be a part of capacity building for a number of lawyers, law students, and in aspiration of being a part of something bigger, building things and instruments and organizations that just help India develop as an arbitral jurisdiction.
So having completed your master's and having work experience outside India, what was it like coming back to India and potentially entering the job candidate pool again? So were you given a certain sense of privilege or preference, or was experience still weighed above having classroom education per se?
I think experience always trumps classroom education, but the kind of advanced education in a particular field you can get through a master's degree is something that you cannot get anywhere else. It's not just in the experience, but in the multicultural discussions with people of various jurisdictions and various perspectives that develop you as a well-rounded practitioner. But coming back to India, I had always expected it to be very difficult. Luckily, some people were very kind to support us, and we got a lot of beginner's luck. And thus, when I came back to India, I did not enter the job pool. I came back and I convinced a few people to join hands, and we set up Skywards Law. So I came back and started off on our own, and it was a very difficult start because I was working for an international law firm. I started with 0 clients in my first month or 2 months, and slowly people who we had worked with over the years started coming, giving us work. And a few years down the line, we are busy, and that's how it builds step by step. But it's always good being closer to home. And it's a very mentally satisfying place to be in, especially for me, when after having spent so many years overseas, I had the chance to be close to family during the pandemic and be here when my family also needed me, despite the fact that I did not have to leave my professional love of international arbitration, and we still got to do all of that excellent work while still being close to home and doing our own practice.
So say there was an instance where you working in international law firms was not a stint and you wish to pursue arbitration there in itself. So how would you assess the international market for arbitrating lawyers when you're an Indian student who has completed his or her master's abroad? Would you say it's
So,
easier for you, or how should one fare about it?
so people who want to go outside, work outside, and then settle outside, for people who want to continue developing their career in arbitration, but still practice it overseas in the long run. Um, you have to appreciate that everyone prefers their own nationals over foreign nationals in any field of law, and not just in fields of law, but in any discipline, anywhere in the world, from India to the United States to Switzerland, everywhere, people prefer their own nationals over foreign nationals. Having said this, for foreign nationals, I would not say that being an Indian makes it much harder than being somebody of a different nationality. The opportunities are available to everyone, and they are the people who get those opportunities are not always just the people who had the best grades or who are the most brilliant, but a variety of factors which come together to get you an opportunity, including luck in certain aspects, including being at the right place at the right time, having the right opportunities, building relations with the right people. And so there are a number of factors that come into play. There is no straitjacket formula for these things, but yes, a master's degree surely helps in giving you credibility in the international market, especially when you want to, as an Indian student, want to pursue an international career. A master's degree will give you a foot in the door, which you could capitalize to build long-term sustainable relations. But the competition is obviously immense, but there is always scope for exceptionally driven people who really want to pursue such a career. If you do it right, there's always scope for Indian students to make their mark. You have two fantastic lawyers who will be speaking later in these series, and to the almost 100 people here, I would strongly recommend Rahul Donde and Trisha Mitra. Both of these are my old friends for many years. I have had the chance of seeing their careers grow, and I can tell you these people have done similar trajectories and also made India very proud by the fantastic, phenomenal things that they have done in the international arbitration world. So there's a lot of lessons to learn from even their journeys, and I strongly recommend that you attend their sessions.
So I would like to take this time to ask a few questions from the Q&A section itself. That so Pranjal Kumar Sinha asks, what's the
Hi, Pranjal.
probability of establishing oneself in ADR after doing a master's from abroad? Do we get the chance of exploring practice facets of ADR practice while pursuing a master's?
See, one, I was not very good at math and probability. And so I can't really tell you 0 point something. It's not as simple as that. Do you get chances? Yes, you do. You get a lot of exposure, you get a lot of opportunities. But these opportunities are ones that you have to create for yourself. You will be competing even in your pool of students there. I remember when I was a student at NUS, they have various events and various conferences which were just so expensive that as a student I could not afford, but I really wanted to go. So I would write to them. I would tell them that I will come 2 hours in advance, help you set up the whole thing. I will stay 2 hours later, help you clean up after everybody's gone. Just please let me attend, and I will not even eat the food. And so various ways, everybody tries their own things. One way or the other, you do get the opportunity, but how you capitalize on those opportunities is completely on you. It's not always just about the cards you're dealt with, but also the hand you play. And that's what it is. Constant uh, it's a constant game of chess, or something much more complicated than that, at which you have to continuously do at various levels. A career, an international career, especially in the very niche field of arbitration, is not for the faint of heart. It's for the people who have the drive to constantly stay at it, and that there is no substitute for that drive and that passion. And for lack of any better word that I know in any language, I would say that the field demands shiddat. You have that. There is nothing that can stand in your way, one way or the other. If you stay at it, and you keep innovating, you keep bettering yourself. Through masters is one way, but you need to constantly keep evolving. Even after you've done your masters, there are a variety of resources available online. I still buy virtually every single arbitration book that I can get my hands on. If anybody ends up writing any book on arbitration in India, I am one of the first people to buy it. It's just my own personal thing, but like, uh, so you need to find your driving factors, and you find those, then these opportunities are always available.
So a question which Ms. Garima Sharma had put up,
Hi,
and I would
Garima.
modify this question a bit, that say, for example, I as a student or even as a practitioner have decided and chewed the concept of whether I should go for arbitration as my career or not. So I've nailed it down and I'm very sure that arbitration is for me. So what is the next step for me? How should I start? Where should I go? What is the first step in going and having a very decent practice of arbitration?
So, Garima, the first step is what you're doing right now, asking the right questions. You need to assess this for yourself. Nobody can do this assessment for you, but you need to see where you are, where you want to go, and how to fill the gap between these two. And then for that gap filling, you can look at stories of various people who are maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years more advanced than you in terms of experience, and try to take leaves out of their books. There's no standard formula, and no two, even if two people do the same thing, they don't land at the same place. It doesn't work that way. It's a very human profession and a very inexact science. So you need to trust your own judgment. You need to learn to trust your own judgment and find ways to constantly do things that bring you closer to where you really want to go. It's a one step at a time process, and it takes many years, even decades of dedication to really get a chance to even have a foothold in these very niche areas.
So a last few questions which we would just like to ask.
No problem. Ask as many.
So when we are a student in law school, we have this mindset of classroom education, and we are more or less primed to expect something very similar to what is being taught in class. So we wake up, go to the class, listen to the professor, ask questions. We come back home, read the concept a bit more and develop our own understanding. But it is a very different ball game when going out for internships, because from my personal experience, when you ask conceptual questions to your superior, they might answer few, but annoyance is very soon to come if you ask too many questions. So what, in your opinion, is required when a student is coming out of the classroom and entering a chamber or a law firm or even any working environment? What is a mindset change which is required, and how should one go about it?
I think the biggest mindset change that is required is not asking esoteric questions expecting an answer in theory. Rather than ask, you need to get your question right. Your question should not always be ki iska jawab kya hai or how do you do this, but your question should be, where do I find the answer to this? We, as somebody who works with a lot of interns on a fairly frequent basis and gets the chance and the privilege to interact with some very brilliant interns, I can tell you that we prefer the interns who ask us where I should be looking for the answer rather than what is the answer. I am very academically inclined. My interns, when they ask me what is the answer, I'm just instinctively more inclined to tell them the answer. But I personally prefer an intern who asks me कि इसका जवाब मिलेगा कहाँ, because as a lawyer we don't know the answers to everything, but our practice and experience gives you an understanding of where you should be looking for the right answers. That's what practice is about. You give me a particular point of law. I do a lot of construction and company and general business law. You give me a particular point, I may not be able to off the top of my head quote you sections or quote you the relevant case law, but I know that given 5-10 minutes, I know the right 3-4 places that I'm checking, and I know the answer in 5-10 minutes. The law practice and profession has changed dramatically in the last 20 years, and it will change many-fold in the next 20 years. And these habits of just memorizing and all of this, they have already become obsolete, and they will progressively become more and more obsolete as we further adopt technology.
So asking a very, in a way, personal question, where do you as Garv Malhotra see yourself in the next 5 years? Is a PhD on the way, or is a dual PhD on the way?
I see myself here doing what I do. After a long time and many years of planning, finally decided to set up my own law firm. We started from scratch, and we're also very new kids on the block in some ways, trying to make a mark, trying to do something different, slowly learning how to get people to trust us to be their lawyers, which is a very difficult thing. It's easier to be employed and do a job rather than convince people that you are the right people to defend them, you and your whole team. At the same time, I'm also learning how to build a team, how to build a vision, and not just focus on doing great or making money or things like that, but really doing things that need to be done in some ways for the arbitration landscape of India. And so I see myself doing what I am doing right now, but much more, much better. A PhD is certainly something that I aspire towards. I don't know, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year. I don't know when that will happen, when I will get the chance to do it. I for sure would want to do it once I am feeling a little stagnated. Right now, every day is a new thing. We are constantly working and slowly growing by leaps and bounds, from starting with just 1 or 2 people who were trusting us with work in the first couple of months, to now a number of people who have started giving us more and more diverse work, people who've started coming back with work, and people who didn't even know of our existence. Programs like these help people get to know that we exist, and slowly our work also has grown. So I do hope that I am able to spare the bandwidth to dedicate to myself and the field of arbitration in a few years' time and do a PhD. I can't say it right now if I'll do a double PhD. I really don't think so, but I never say never. So yeah, I hope to do it in a few years' time.
So just the last question for today's session by Mr. Parasnath Mishra.
Hi, Paras.
He asks that how to get into NUS for LLM for a student who has 60% in his academics, but has done good work like extracurricular activities, won many competitions, done many courses on dispute resolution, and has written awards and many papers. So is it possible to get into the cream of academics and arbitration with a low CGPA at the end of your
Absolutely.
professional career?
Absolutely possible. I think for a lot of us, and I've gone through this myself, thinking mujhe to kaun admission dega, mujhe to kaun scholarship dega, self-doubt is a very natural thing, and everybody goes through it. People who say they don't go through it are probably not really being completely forthwith, but the truth is that we all go through these phases. But if you ask me, how do you do it? You do it with confidence, not just in what you write, but in yourself. You need to believe that you are right, you are fit for that program. The program will do you a lot of good, and you will also add a lot of value. Given the chance, you will demonstrate that you were very right for that program. You give yourself that confidence, the path will pave its way. That's how it works. And while I can't comment 60%, 70%, 50%, 80%, that's it depends every year, depends who's applying various factors. But what is in your control is the presentation of your application, as well as your own ability to persuade whoever's on the other side of the application process that you are just the right person for joining this program. And given what you have told me about the wonderful things that you have done, you have a lot to demonstrate that.
So Advocate Garv, we wished that time went on in a loop and we had all the time to extract as much knowledge as we possibly could. However, we as lawyers can do the unthinkable, but we cannot control time. So having tried our very best to address all the queries from the participants and ourselves, we would now like to conclude the session, and we are extremely thankful for your time and for accepting our invitation to have a talk with us and professionals who are joining us and guide us in knowing where to look at, as you just said, and asking the right questions rather than asking how, and rather searching for where. So thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful and enriching session. And we hope to organize more of such events in collaboration with you down the line. I would also like to thank the participants for showing such an overwhelming excitement about this webinar series, which is our initiative. And we hope that you have enjoyed, but more importantly, derived information and knowledge from these sessions. We would also like to inform you that the next session in this series, titled Mediation, the What and How, would be arranged in the next week and would be hosted by Mr. Jonathan Rodriguez, who is a well-renowned mediator. If you have an account on LinkedIn, you must be aware of who he is. So till then, have a nice weekend and maybe listen to Ryo Fukui on YouTube. And so would you like to send off any message?
Yeah, I would like to have a couple of parting thoughts, if I may. First, thank you for inviting me, giving me this opportunity of sharing my thoughts with all of you. I'm always looking forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn and things like that. We run our own internship programs as well as a 6-month training contract, which is modeled very much on the Singapore and British law firm system. And we are opening up the applications for the training contract, which is our Sky Ticket program, which is the way we select associates. We are happy that our first person candidate from the Sky Ticket program will now be joining us as in-house first associate also in that team from that program. Also, we look forward, if I end up running into any of you somewhere and I haven't had the chance of being acquainted, please come up, say hi, and just remind me that we had the chance of sort of interacting through this session. Thank you, Bombay Chamber and RGNUL, for inviting me. If I had to give one recommendation of things to watch, which we make all our interns and all our team members, whoever comes to our office, watch, is this Harvard Class Day lecture by this fantastic lawyer called Mr. Preet Bharara, who at the time was the district attorney for the Southern District of New York. And he took a lecture at Harvard at Harvard Law School on being happy in the profession of law, which is very different from being successful in the profession of law. If you just YouTube with a couple of keywords, I am certain that you will find it. I recommend it to you all, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Rishabh. Thank you, Chaitanya. Okay. Bye.